This is actually a two-presenter question. So Patrick, we didn't get a chance to chat very much when I came out to visit you guys in June, but by far the favorite winery of my day, so spectacular. I want to know how your pears are doing, because I saw the jars on the tree, so I'm curious about that. And Mary, because you're here, I worked at Capers in the corporate office from 97 to 2004, and I ate at least once a week the raisin bread. Every single week. And then I'm buying some stuff from Carolyn because I'm doing the London Drugs opening. And I said to her, when is that raisin bread coming back? So you're here, you need to answer that question. Or tell me a special day that you'll make a batch of it. I'll give you my email so I can come and buy some.
Thanks for the question. We try to make unique products at Vista Durrell. So the walnut wine, we do a Slivovic, which is a plum wine. And one of the other things I do is I put bottles up in our pear trees. We use hockey tape. I steal it from my son's hockey bag. And I go to the barn and I grab some bale twine, and we string up the bottles and we hang them upside down on our pear trees. And some of you may be familiar with a product of the LCB called Port Williams. Port Williams is a tree varietal in France. And the whole idea is to stick a small budlet of a pear as it's growing into the bottle, fully mature, ripen, and then we're going to put some white wine, and then in the back, I've got some brandy actually sitting in some apple and pear skins, and we're going to fortify it to be about a 19% white port. Thank you. I've got 80 bottles available for you.
Oh, fantastic.
All right. Now I'm on the spot. That's a good question, though, because I had mentioned about, each bread is different. And with growth, I left you off, I think, in kits, and then the bakery now over 19 years has evolved to the 4 locations. And so in all of that growth, every now and then you want to make room for new products. And so the raisin bread, somebody with the numbers sat down at a desk and said, oh, this is the low, but I absolutely love that bread. So, and since I do all the product development, I can put a little tweak in there to get it back. But yeah, it's that's the interesting thing about a bakery, is that customers, you get so attached, and it's such a part of a community where, unlike a restaurant where I think the expectation is you're going to get a different menu, it's going to be changing all the time. A bakery, it's a little bit more challenging because customers, they get attached to a product, and it's a big, it's something that you sort of get an emotional connection to, and they don't let it go. So sometimes for me, I'm at that point where, okay, I'm ready to, I've been making that scone for a number of years now. I'm ready to change it. So every now and then we do it slowly, just because I want to sort of ease people in. But if you do give me your card, I can help you out with some
special raisin bread day.
I think I can work something out.
Raisin bread smoothie or something.
Don't mess with it. It's good as it was.
No, but we do have to make room because I have so many exciting things I want to do, and there's just Vancouver, the food movement is just exploding. Local products, like with what Eric's doing, there's so many great things, and tapping in like the wheat that we're growing, and we have wheat that's grown out in Chilliwack that we're able to make special breads with. There's so many things you want to do, but you can't do it all sometimes because we want to do it really well. So we're not changing and recreating something different every day. We really nurse. Like if you come in sometime, you'll see how careful we nurture those cultures, and so everything is slow. So just like we do slow food in the bakery, we do slow business.
So before I go to the next question, I've got one. I've got one to pre. So before, when I was setting up all the speakers for tonight and everything, I had like 4, because I was kind of doing this over the summer, trying to figure out where to put people and who was available. So I walk through Whole Foods and I'm hungry, I'm looking for a healthy snack, and I see kale chips. Those look good. So I buy a couple bags, I go home, I eat them, and I don't know if you're supposed to eat the whole bag at one shot, or I ate the whole bag in one shot. And I thought, wow, these are really good. I wonder how you make these. Well, it's probably a bit too complicated. So I looked through it and I thought, okay, I know Organic Lives. I've been to many events. Organic Lives has been there many years ago. And I saw these things, and kale's good for you, obviously. But, so I thought, I'm curious about the background of these kale chips. I wonder, I see them in the store in Vancouver, I wonder where else they've gone. So I do a little research, that kind of thing. And I emailed Preet and I asked him if he'd like to come and speak at Food Talk tonight, and he said yes. So I'm very happy for that. But I actually want to know, the kale chips that you're trying in Vancouver now, and you've got products all over the place. I imagine in Whole Foods you've got them in Canada. Are you in Whole Foods in the US with these products as well?
Not yet.
Okay, so I guess that's coming. But for kale, out of Vancouver, I don't it's hard to explain this question because here we're growing food locally, we're eating food locally, that kind of thing. When I'm in the US, I see a very different kind of eating cycle in the US. A lot of it's junk food oriented still. They don't really know what organic is sometimes in some of the smaller places. So for, let's say, kale chips, for example, how do you plan on selling your product into American supermarkets? And how do you think they will grasp it like we have here?
Yeah, really good question. Part of growth is really trying to figure out what markets we're going to go into. And US, in Canada, we always have this allure and this attraction to going to the US because the idea is we're going to have instant success by going to the US. For me personally, the US market is not one that I'm overly excited about unless you get into the Whole Foods and that sort of market where people have an understanding. They walk into a store, like when you walk into Whole Foods, you have a certain understanding for the products that they're going to have, the types of products, the health aspects, and so forth. You can get into markets quite easily with companies like Whole Foods. If we were going to put our product into a 7-Eleven or something like that, it would be next to impossible. You've got a $7 bag of kale chips that weighs 30 grams beside a 99-cent bag of potato chips that's 200 grams. The average consumer looks at it and goes, yeah, I'll just have the potato chips without really understanding the difference between the products. So we are so specialized in what we do, we've got to be very selective of the markets that we go into. And I feel that there's actually greater opportunity globally than there is here in North America. Just having come back from Japan, Hong Kong, and Bangkok, the growth for organic is absolutely off the charts. The people there are really starting to grasp and understand the importance of healthy eating. It's not something they've really had to think about because their food was always organic. Everything they did grew organically. They didn't use the chemicals and the pesticides. Over the last few decades, they're importing everything. And now they're seeing the health slowly start to decline. So there's this movement to go back to that way of eating in agriculture. So I feel there are huge opportunities. I think it's more global than it is North America.
Eric, you'd had Edible Canada. I understand Edible Vancouver's the magazine. So I take it that's why there might have been a conflict in naming?
Yeah, we were here as Edible Vancouver first. Actually, Edible Vancouver came in after we had become Edible BC. And Edible Vancouver, good friend of ours, and we love what they're doing. It's actually, the parent publication's US-based. It's called Edible Communities, and there's about 80 magazines across North America, all with the universal edible name to them.
So Edible Canada, had you ever thought about doing Edible Granville Island? Or will you be branching out to Edible Commercial Drive or Edible Main Street? Or
we knew we wanted to grow in various other markets across the country and around the world, and we actually looked at doing Edible Ontario, Edible Quebec, Edible Alberta. We've been approached numerous times to do various ventures like that, but we felt the name Edible Canada gave us that brand, that instant brand recognition that we could take not only anywhere in Canada, but anywhere around the world. And Business 101, the less confusing it can be for the consumer, the better. So rather than having a bunch of different brands across the country and around the world, we're far better off to have one brand that we can then promote the best of what we're doing anywhere in the world.
And you felt that Edible Canada was a better move than Edible BC? Just to not, because BC has so many wonderful products that are known to this area.
Oh, absolutely. BC is amazing. I'm fourth generation Vancouverite. I believe in everything we're doing here, but you go to Prince Edward County in Ontario, you go to the small villages of Quebec, you go to the fishing villages of Halifax, there's so much that this country has to offer. And from I agree with Preet. I think really the expansion possibilities are far more internationally based than they are North American based. And I've spent time in Beijing over the last couple of years, Tokyo. We're definitely looking at those Asia Pacific markets for expansion in the near future, and far more than we're looking at opening up in, say, Toronto or California or New York.
But does that mean you're going to take the products from Canada and bring them over there?
We are. We're going to be taking Canadian food products and helping grow that brand as to what Canada is in those other countries. Sort of different model than what we've sort of set up here, obviously. But we do want to take that Canadian brand and really create what that Canadian brand is on an international scale.
How does that go against the local, buy local, stay within the 100-mile area, right, and buy things that are regionally grown? How do you work the dichotomy?
It's definitely one of the challenges that we've had, trying to sort of resonate with those two different things. And I think for us, it's really, we've made the conscious decision about, we built this on the local market here, but we really want to be able to showcase what Canada's doing in other markets around the world and taking that brand globally.
Preet has kind of mentored me in a lot of the stuff with raw, organic, and eating clean. So my question for you, Preet, is, you deal with the small producers in Thailand and in Peru a lot. What is the movement that you see with the big private sector producers? Do you see this change? Do you see consumers demanding more of fair trade and organic? Because you say it's a label, and I won't even ask you right now on the segregation between Fair Trade USA and Flow, because I know that's a huge issue right now with a lot of the certification bodies and the small producers. So where do you see private sector moving in this trend?
Private sector, private sector is broken into two sort of areas in my mind. We've got sort of, companies like this, what you see across the frontier, the really grassroots movement, and then you've got massive private corporations. The massive private corporations will always go where the money is. So as consumers do demand more product, better product, you'll see a shift on the private large corporation side moving in to try to get into that marketplace, whether it's acquiring the small companies, acquiring land, growing the stuff, really what I call unsustainably, and marketing it that way. And you'll see a big rise in the grassroots movement, because we're going to need more and more small local producers to really fill the true demand. The true demand that's going to come from the discerning consumer that says, yeah, you know what, I no longer want to buy from Walmart. I want to go back and buy from my farmer's market. And that's going to require small producers. So the growth will come on both sides. As a consumer, we have to choose what side we're actually truly going to support. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. And I have a question for Patrick, too. Because you talk about cash flows and sustainability. Has Monsanto been an issue within your industry? I hear Monsanto a lot in the wheat production and in Calgary and the corn production. Has Monsanto affected your industry and the wine industry? And also with this whole collapse of the honeybees, since you're on the ground and seeing this, has this been an issue for you as well?
I'll take two approaches to that. First of all, I love what Monsanto does with their advertising, because I'm advertising background. So all my trade journals that come in for farms or for the winery, always the full color, full page ads are Bayer, Monsanto, and really poorly written editorials around those ads. So, that's where the money is, right? I mean, they got the budget to create and buy full page color ads to try to persuade farmers, this is what you need to put on your crop. If you've got strawberries, you can spray it with this and they'll be ready for tomorrow for the market. They've got a cure for everything. And we've got decisions to make, and do we need to do that? No. Some larger industrial farmers, they want to be first to the market and they will take advantage of those products. So when you go to your local farmers markets, you're supporting people who probably won't be using industrial chemicals. The second part of the question was regarding the honeybees. Honeybees are kind of odd. For the first 3 years when our orchard started to mature in, I brought in 40 hives. And there was always an Alberta beekeeper that would have some hives available. And what happened is that my trees were starting to get over-pollinated. And we'd have to hire part-time people to go out and pick apples and call. We call it the June call, and thin all our apple trees and pear trees. So the last 2 years I haven't brought in any bees. And then this May we were blessed with 2 really good weeks in May. And what happens is all the beekeepers from Alberta who keep their bees here for the berry farms are all in the South Langley area and for the raspberry fields. We got over-pollinated again. And today I had 2 people out picking for 10-hour shifts, thinning apples, because if we don't, even though we prune our trees really well, the branches get so big and so heavy, we're getting 800 pounds off of one tree. So and that's with no fertilizer and no sprays. And so, I mean, they are doing a great job. Now these are not honeybees though, okay? These are kind of odd folks. They are Italian honeybees from New Zealand. Okay, so whenever you see them, they're actually New Zealand bees with Italian heritage.
Because I'm from Langley, I'm a Langley girl. My dad owns a farm there, and what he's been doing and what the crop people have been doing there is literally touching one leaf to another leaf because they're the honeybees.
Yeah, I would say like the Mason bees, they like it like 16 to 18 degrees with a light wind. They don't come out. But the New Zealand Italian bees, they'll fly at 16 degrees. So that's why, and the beekeeping business is big dollars. And so the guys who do the raspberry blueberries fields here, they move all those hives back to Alberta for the canola fields. So they start the season here. It's just like the old thrasher days. You know, they start down the south and they move them up to the north.
So a lot of you guys have traveled, and I'm kind of curious, if you were to travel again, which I'm sure you will, what would you take to represent British Columbia or Canada along with you? Like, and I mean, no, you can't really take juice with you, maybe, as per se, but is there something from BC or Canada that you would take? Because I travel a lot, and yeah, I don't want to take maple syrup anymore. I think people are kind of dead on it. So I've been taking BC wines. I'm now interested in the walnut wine. Like, I'm sort of thinking, ooh, that would be a good thing to take along. So what would you take in your suitcase to give out and represent British Columbia and Canada?
This is probably a cliche answer, but in Nepal and India, there's pancakes everywhere, but there is no maple syrup. So I would have brought the maple syrup.
I will take maple syrup. You have to have it. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it was like the one thing that we didn't have. When you're like stuck in a mountain, all you can have is pancakes for breakfast, and they have no honey, so they're just dry pancakes. And all we ever thought about was maple syrup, and we were in a small
business number 3.
Yeah, it's funny because we were in Rishikesh in the northern India, and we were at this grocery store, and we actually found one Canadian bottle of maple syrup that just happened to be stacked away with like hundreds of old groceries. So somehow someone from Canada brought a bottle of maple syrup and left it there for sale. We obviously bought it.
I honestly, I don't ever really think I bring things when I travel to anybody. I'm kind of selfish. I usually pick up, maybe throw a bag of granola from the bakery, but usually I'm traveling to go and eat somewhere else. But the first thing that would pop into mind would be, Lee's Preserves, because there's a combination of the BC grown fruit, it's local, I can say I know the farmer, I understand the process, or even the preserves where you use the wine, right? You're using your walnut wine in it. So something that is encompassing. And I think what I always want to do is it's not, for me, what makes food really special is a story behind food. So I would look for something where I have a connection, I know the farmer, or there's something I can talk about about the food. Not that I'm just hunting to say this is local or this is from the backyard. It has to. I would have to have a connection.
I would take a pancake recipe and
cook it and give the maple syrup. Okay,
that's the deal.
That's the deal. Oh no! When I go away, no, I'm not doing any cooking. There's somebody else is cooking for me.
So when I do travel, the one thing I always take, and for anybody that's had our macaroons, that's what I take. And they're, for me, the easiest way to get anybody on board to anything I want to say. Have listeners our macaroons. And yes, it comes back to maple syrup, and we have the best maple syrup in small farms in Quebec. So we like to showcase that product. We also create macaroons with our local raspberries and other fruits as well. So it combines the best of kind of all worlds. And for me, our food is about the story as well. So it's not so much that this is what Canada represents, in terms of the actual ingredients. This is what Canadian companies represent. This is the integrity, the ethical aspect of food that we're bringing to the rest of the world. So that's what really, at the end of the day, we like to take. I just take it in the form of macaroons.
Well, that's what it is. It's a tactile thing with a story.
I've never been asked this question before. As a guy who represents over 300 unique artists and BC food companies, it's certainly a question we run into on a daily basis down at Granville Island. But for me, I think the one thing I always try to take traveling is birch syrup. Birch syrup, so similar to maple syrup, it comes from northern British Columbia. Same process as maple syrup, but it takes 100 liters of sap to make a single liter of syrup. And when we got asked to cook in New York last year, it was the one ingredient we did take with us. And we did a sable fish with it, which we marinated with the birch syrup and kazu, which is the rice left over after the mixake. And that came from Granville Island as well, from Granville Island Sake Maker, and we really thought that epitomized what Canadian food is at this point, which is that BC homegrown product, but with that international influence from the Kazoo. And we were fortunate, the first night we were there, we did a dinner for 5,000 people with this birch syrup. And also the same night, Morimoto decided to cook sablefish. So we were a little intimidated, and at the end of the night, the editor of Food and Wine came and said it was the best sablefish he'd ever had, and was curious what birch syrup was. And it's a great story to tell people. People get excited about it. And for me personally, I'm a huge single malt Scotch fan, and there's nothing better than single malt Scotch cut with birch syrup, and then marinate halibut or sablefish with it. You get that like smoky Lagavulin Lefroy Scotch with this sweet birch syrup. It's fantastic. So.
Thank you, Rick. I'm getting thirsty. We probably should, and when we do travel to visit culinary wine people, we will bring some of our culinary jams or some of our wines. But you know, I'll be honest. If I'm traveling, I'll give out Vancouver Canuck hockey jerseys. Where are you from? Here, oh, you know, they love it. Everyone wants to be a Canuck.
I had a question for Mary. I'm just wondering how we go about getting a tour of all these fancy rooms you've been talking about. Yeah. And then just a quick question for the juice truck guys. I'm just wondering if you guys drink your juice every day.
We haven't actually opened up to the public, but maybe I've got to put that on my list. When we do tours, it's for culinary schools. So we bring in students from culinary schools. They can do practicums where they can come get experience working in the bakery. It's a great thing to do for students to see, to get into the environment and see, you know, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and spend my life doing this? So students come through. We also do some educational programs with children. So a lot of elementary schools, they're fascinated by the process, and I think it's really wonderful to, like the program Growing Chefs, like tapping into children and teaching them where food is coming from, getting them engaged, to get their hands touching food, making food. That's what's really going to make the change, I think, for their generation, is making sure that they're actually cooking. So far it's just been in that structure, but again, in the future I'm hoping that I can start to talk about it more and let everybody know about the process, because I love it. So yeah, you know, take my card and come by and call me. I'm always there.
Yeah, we drink a lot of juice.
It's like a running joke with our regulars. We have like the juice truck diet, which is just juice. So for the last year, I think every day from 12 to 5, all we've ever had is juice all day. And it'll probably stay that way for the next year, I'd say.
To be honest, like we have juice for lunch quite often, and before we open, I usually go down to Organic Plants and get a smoothie before I can have one of mine. So I really like juice and smoothies.
I want to spin her question a bit. What's your favorite juice and smoothie, each of you guys?
Right now.
Right now.
I like the green with apple, extra lime, and extra parsley, and the almost chocolate smoothie.
I actually like Preet's one, where I combine this super delicious one and the other one.
Super body?
Yeah, that's my favorite smoothie right now, actually. Thanks, Preet, for giving me lunch for all time.
So just as a recent graduate and here among with other classmates and graduates of the Institute of Holistic Nutrition, just kind of hearing you guys speak as successful entrepreneurs in this area, any advice that you have for us that you'd like to kind of give people entering this field?
You know, honestly, I think as just an entrepreneur perspective, the biggest thing that you can have is a belief and sticking with it. You know, when you become an entrepreneur and you get into business, it's so easy to be swayed and guided, and a lot of times misguided by the pursuit of just the almighty dollar. If you really have a belief and a conviction and you stick with it, whatever it is that you're pursuing will come through. So that's the best advice I can give you, is don't ever deviate from what you believe in, don't ever compromise.
Follow your passion. I mean, follow what each of you will have as individual passions, but entrepreneurs always think that we're really good at everything, and we're not. We're usually really good at one thing, or maybe two, and if you surround yourself with people who can fill in all the other gaps and do those things better than you, you'll be incredibly successful at business. And don't try and do it all yourself, because we can all work 18 hours a day, but I've seen a lot of people work 18 hours a day very inefficiently.
For sure, you got to have the passion and the desire to do it, but you know, realistically too, you have to make sure you have a friendly bank manager. You know, you really got to have someone that believes in you, especially during the growth years, because it's not always, you know, it's not always in the black. So, you know, be very realistic about your cash flow.
My advice would be, say yes a lot. Get involved in different programs, you know, when you're starting out. Volunteer, because networking is what will build and will sort of open things up for you. I have a family, a full-time job, and I also belong to several organizations which do a lot of fundraising. It requires a lot of time, but it gives back as much as I put into it. And it also, as I described earlier, that not only bread making is all I do, but my journey is going further through all this networking that I do. So through organizations like Les Dames, which we talked about, we fundraise scholarships, and for Chef's Table Society, where we promote sustainable food and agriculture and educate chefs about what's out there, and that, you know, options besides going and buying all from the large purchasing, how to get organics, how to balance the cost, because that's a big challenge. So by volunteering and networking, the doors will just keep opening up for you.
Our advice, when we started, we approached CYBF, which is like Canadian Youth Business Foundation, and we work with them to create a business plan in order to get essentially like an interest-free loan for the first year. And part of the program is that you're set up with a mentor for 2 years. So we work with the founder of Blow Hair Dry Bar, and it was essential to us because we had sort of drafted a one-page business plan, and then when we took it to them, they pretty much ripped it up and told us to spend the next month putting it together. And in reality, it was probably the best thing that we had done. So it's a little bit cliche, but writing a business plan was important. And I would say working with a mentor was amazing for us. If you just go type in CYBF into Google, they were an instrumental help in our early kind of development. And having someone as a soundboard with a lot of experience was awesome for us.
I'll echo what a couple of people have already said already. I'd say just put yourself out there. There's an incredible amount of support in the city. If you're passionate about what you want to do and you put it out to the city of Vancouver, it's incredible how many people will support what you believe in, and find purpose in your passion and work those two together. And I think there's a good path between purpose and passion.
Preet, you said that Organic Lives, the Quebec location burnt down. Will you be rebuilding?
Yes, absolutely. You know, the one thing that this incident is really showing us is how much support there was and is in Vancouver for what we are doing. And you know, going back to these guys' comments, it's amazing when you just do what it is you believe in, you're passionate about, and you don't compromise, and you know, all the other things. Surround yourself with the right people, get the right people to buy in and support and believe in what you're doing, and then you just focus on what it is that you do best. The community that you build is absolutely phenomenal. So we've been inundated every single day with phone calls, emails. We definitely are opening up again. We're just in the final stages of finding our next location. As soon as we have that, give us 3 months and we'll be back operational. And it's like the $6 million round approach. Bigger, better, faster, stronger.
So first of all, I want to thank all of the speakers tonight. You guys were great, and I'm sure everybody learned a lot. I've seen a lot of interesting comments on Twitter. So on your way out, there's a sweet treat from Coco Nymph again in the back, and take it home, enjoy. Thank you for coming, and we'll let you know when the next Food Talks is going to be.